Okay, so get this. A judge in D.C. straight up threatened to jail a member of Congress. I'm telling you, no one saw it coming. Not the lawyers, not the judge, nobody. Then, boom, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett shuts it down. In like a minute and a half, she not only avoids jail, but she totally schools this tough judge. By the end, Judge Howell was basically asking her for legal tips. Crazy, right? It's like watching what occurs when smarts meet power. So, sit back and let's check out this crazy story of how bravery won the day. Okay, so there's Judge Beryl Howell. She's 67 and a big deal in the D.C. court. She got the job back in 2010. Before that, she was the main judge there, a prosecutor, and worked for the Senate Judiciary Committee. Basically, she knows law inside and out after doing it for years. She always looks sharp, hair perfect, robe neat. Lawyers get nervous when she starts asking questions or makes a sarcastic comment. She's had some huge cases like political sneaky stuff and national security things. She's known to be super careful and can be a bit scary. Some defense lawyers think she favors the other side, but they won't say it where she can hear. Recently, Judge Howell has been really protective of her court. If she thinks someone's messing with how things are run, she comes down hard. She doesn't hesitate to use her authority if she thinks it's needed. Okay, so there's Jasmine Crockett, a fresh face in Congress at 43, representing Texas. She's got this energy that just fills the room. Before politics, she was a civil rights lawyer, always fighting against courts going too far. She graduated with top grades from law school, argued cases in front of the state's highest court, and even wrote a well-regarded article about the right and wrong ways for judges to use their power. Seriously impressive. She showed up in Judge Howell's courtroom just to watch, drawn in by a First Amendment case about political speech, something she was working on in Congress. The day before, after a ruling that limited what the defense could show, Crockett spoke to reporters outside. She chose her words carefully but didn't hold back. I respect the court, but this ruling seems to ignore how we usually handle protected political speech. It feels like the First Amendment is being applied selectively here, and that's concerning. These thoughtful words, coming from a congresswoman with serious legal experience, clearly bothered Judge Howell, setting things up for a major back and forth. Ever stood up to someone with authority, abusing their power, like a boss or teacher? Share your story in the comments. Okay, back to that Friday in courtroom 22. It's huge, with fancy wood walls, a big high ceiling, and sunlight making shadows on the floor. The room really makes you feel like someone's in control. Judge Howell walks in right at 9:00 a.m., looking serious. Reporters are in the front with their notebooks, and students fill up the seats. You could cut the tension with a knife. Everyone knows something important is happening. The judge gets right to it. Before we start, she says loudly, "We have something to talk about first." She looks right at Congresswoman Crockett. "Representative Crockett, please come up here." The room got quiet as Crockett, in a nice navy suit and pearls, stood up. While some might get nervous under Judge Howell's hard stare, she was totally calm, walking confidently to the middle of the courtroom. Judge Howell didn't waste time. "I know about what you said to the press yesterday about my decision in the United States versus Marson case," she said, sounding cold. "You implied that this court was unfair with First Amendment rules and questioned its honesty. Statements like yours, especially from a congresswoman and lawyer, could hurt the public's trust and could be seen as disrespecting the court. I'm thinking about penalties, maybe even jail time, if you don't apologize." The room was silent. The court reporter typed as fast as possible. Judge Howell gave Crockett 5 minutes to explain why she shouldn't be held in contempt. What happened next? It was legal genius. Crockett nods, flips open her leather folder, and starts speaking. Her voice is clear, respectful, but you can tell she knows what she's talking about. "Thanks, Judge," she says, pausing for a beat. "Before we get into the accusations, I want to be clear about why I'm here and what the legal rules are." Judge Howell leans in, like she wasn't expecting this. "I know who you are," she says sharply. "I'm worried about you bad-mouthing the court." Crockett doesn't even blink. "I understand, Judge," she says, her voice even. "I'm here for 2 reasons. I'm a congresswoman who keeps an eye on the courts, and I'm a lawyer who knows the rules about contempt powers." She holds up a paper. "With the court's permission, I've got a quick summary of the contempt laws in this situation." The room buzzes. Did she just bring a legal document? Judge Howell looks surprised, then nods. "You can come forward." Crockett kept talking as the judge looked over the paperwork. She sounded calm, but was definitely in charge. "In the case of Bridges v. California, the Supreme Court said you can only punish someone for contempt if their words are a real and immediate threat to how justice is served." Judge Howell squinted, and you could tell she was being more careful now. "I know the case," she said. Crockett didn't back down. I'm just saying, Your Honor, that it's worrisome when First Amendment rules seem to be applied unevenly. That's just a legal thought about keeping things fair under the Constitution, not a slam on this court. She passed over another paper, the whole word for word of what she said to the press. It showed she started by saying she respected the court. People in the room looked at each other. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill defending. Crockett wasn't just defending herself. She was showing everyone how it's done, cool and collected. As Crockett continues, the pressure changes. She produces more documents, almost like a legal wizard. In Landmark Communications versus Virginia, she says, the Supreme Court protected people talking about court cases, especially by public officials who watch over them. Then she mentions Standing Committee versus Yagman, pointing out that a lawyer's criticism of a judge is protected unless it's a lie. My comments weren't false, and they weren't about your reasons, Your Honor. They were about keeping the rules consistent. She gives over her legal qualifications, noting her past with judicial contempt cases and her law review write-up. The reporters are jotting things down like crazy now. The big moment. Crockett mentions a 2019 case where Judge Howell stated, thinking about and speaking honestly about judicial decisions is useful and barely becomes contempt. You could hear a pin drop in the room. Did she just use the judge's own words? Crockett closes her folder, stares right at Howell and says, unless my comments were a serious and immediate threat which needs real proof, the Constitution and what you said yourself don't back up a contempt charge. End of discussion. Judge Howell looked at the papers, clearly surprised. She thought she was going to easily assert her authority, but things are now a constitutional chess game, and Crockett seems to be an expert player. After a pause, Howell said, I need to review this. We'll take a 15-minute break. The room was noisy as she went to her office. 15 minutes turned into 30. When Howell came back, she seemed different. Unsure, thoughtful. She looked at Crockett, standing at the podium. Congresswoman, she said, sounding almost friendly. I looked over your stuff and what you said. Your words had more detail than I thought, and your legal explanation is detailed. The room was shocked. Howell admitted Crockett knew her stuff, then said something big. I'm taking back the contempt warning, but she didn't stop there. She asked Crockett to write a legal document about the First Amendment stuff in the Marson case, turning a fight into a team effort. Crockett smiled and said yes. In that moment, things changed. Okay, so what happened after was something really special. Judge Howell spoke to everyone in the room, and you could tell she was thinking hard. She said something like, judges have a lot of power with contempt since they can accuse and judge at the same time. Because of this, we have to be careful and stick to the rules. She thanked Crockett for being so knowledgeable and doing a great job, and even said, this just goes to show that our legal system gets better when we learn and stay humble. Then, out of nowhere, she said she was going to rethink her decision in the Marson case because of Crockett's arguments about the Constitution. When Crockett went outside, she told reporters, today proves how strong our system is when we stick to what's right and treat each other well. The news went wild, with headlines like contempt becomes teamwork and Congresswoman teaches judge about the Constitution. Law schools began using what happened as a teaching example, and the people who trained judges started using it to explain the limits of contempt. A few weeks later, Crockett turned in her legal document, and Howell changed her mind for good, showing how one brave, smart woman could bring change to the legal process. So, have you ever seen anyone totally change a bad situation like this? Tell me about it below. Let's keep talking about doing what's right and holding people responsible.